Hey everyone, I'm Almar of almarsguides.com, and as you can already tell from this video, it's a little bit different than the previous boxing videos that I've been uploading to my channel. Before we get started, I apologize for the poor sound quality and the fact that you have to look at me in the bottom right corner. I'm testing things out, experimenting, figuring out what works, what I would like to do, how I would like to make videos in the future and stuff like that. And the reason why you see me instead of hearing the game sounds is because in this video I'm going to explain how I box right now. How I box changes quite a bit because I'm still learning the game, still getting new skills, blah blah blah. I just got my mount like one level ago, so I had to make keybinds for that and all of that fun stuff, practice using that. So before I get started with the instance here, let me explain my setup a little bit and different keybinds and stuff like that and how I play in general boxing. Now, something that I do that I don't see many other boxers do is I have two sets of keybinds. I have character-specific keybinds and box-specific keybinds. What that means is I have keybinds that aren't bound in ISBoxer at all, which I consider my character-specific keybinds. This means that whenever I press that key, whatever character is my main character will use that ability. Now, these character-specific keybinds, I only have 6 of them. Well, a little bit more than 6, sorry. But they're delete, end, page down, insert, home, and page up. And also on the numpad, the slash, the asterisk, the minus sign, and the plus sign. Those are the only character-specific keybinds I have. So like if I get on my healer right here, I can press end, which will bubble him, and if I do end on the tank, it's Sunder Armor, and as you can see the priest isn't bubbling when I spam end on the tank. So the reason this is done is because the tank, most importantly, needs keybinds that don't do anything on any other character because he needs to build threat and basically pilot and control the entire team. And you don't want your characters doing other stuff while you're trying to build threat and all of that stuff. Basically, all my other characters, they don't have any character-specific keybinds set up except for the healer, because I occasionally have to switch to him, in the midst of a battle and throw renews, bubbles, heals, whatever it takes to keep my characters alive. Now, as for my actual keybinds that I use when I'm playing, I have quite a few. Every single F key is bound, as well as I have the control button for a modifier for the F key, so control F1, control F2, control F3, they're also bound. And I play on the right hand side of the keyboard, which means the numpad is what I primarily use while playing, so everything on the numpad is also bound to my characters. So you got my main abilities are numpad 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're abilities that need to be fired off quickly during combat, and usually not utility stuff, heals, damage, stuff like that. Those are what are bound to the numpad. F1 through F12 and control F1 through control F12, they're all more utility stuff. Like control F5, for example, right here, it creates soul stones on my 3 warlocks, and then control F6 will target whichever character I specify and use the soul stone on that character. So therefore my tank, priest, and one of my warlocks gets a soul stone when I use that macro. I also have control F1, which is my buff macro. So as you can see there, it uses demon armor on everybody as well as unending breath. I just do that for a dispel slot. On my priest it uses inner fire, and it's supposed to use Shadow Ward, but I recently upgraded Inner Fire and the buff macro breaks until you relog, which kind of a pain in the ass, but oh well. And let's see, what other macros do I have? Cannibalize is F4, my mount is F5, my follow macro is F6. I don't use the ISBoxer follow because I don't like it. I don't like a lot of the things ISBoxer does. I would rather just set up macros within the game that do it instead of trying to use like ISBoxer's Jamba follow or whatever it is. It's not something I find that reliable or worth messing around with. I would prefer to just do a follow macro in game. It's easier, more reliable, never breaks, easy to set up, and it's repeatable across games. When I box in EverQuest, I have a similar follow macro also bound to F6. So now that I can actually get started with the instance run, since we're 5 minutes into the video already, I'm going to explain step by step kind of what buttons I'm hitting, what it does, why I'm doing it while I go through the instance, and hopefully people find it beneficial. So first, to pull, I have shoot bound to my asterisk on my numpad, which of course isn't bound on any of the other characters. I have numpad 2 bound to target. It targets the mob on all of my characters and on my priest. Instead of targeting the mob, it'll target the tank. So basically when I pull a mob, spam numpad 2, all 3 warlocks target the mob, priest targets the tank. Everything's ready to go. The delete button on the numpad is my main DPS rotation, which is or my main DPS button, which I have Shadow Bolt bound to it, and that's it for right now. I have also on my warlocks, I have a cast sequence macro, which I just learned about the other day, which is basically, here I'll pull it up, and it's basically a macro that rotates whatever spells you put in it. So mine right now is cast sequence, and then I have it reset, which means it'll go back to the first ability when whichever of the variables is triggered, or whatever you would call it, pretty sure variable. Reset equals target, whenever I change targets, /10, which would be 10 or 10 seconds. So whenever I change targets or 10 seconds goes by, it'll reset back to the first ability in the macro. So Curse of Agony, Corruption, and Shadow Burn is the abilities that I have bound in that macro. So whenever I hit 9, it'll do Curse of Agony on all 3 of the warlocks, then Corruption, then Shadow Burn. I'll show you how that works on this mob right up here. See, there we go. 3 Curse of Agonies, 3 Corruptions, and then 3 Shadow Burns, just like that. Perfect cast sequence macro, and it only uses up 1 slot, which is absolutely delightful. I used to have them bound to a bunch of different slots, and yeah, it was like 4 different keybinds, pain in my ass. Something else worth mentioning is I also have control bound to each of the numpads. So control numpad 1, control numpad 2, control numpad 3. I just recently started adding these for WoW. I never used control numpad while boxing in EverQuest because I didn't need that many keybinds, but WoW has quite a few more abilities than EverQuest for the most part on each character, so I'm probably going to need more keybindings than I had in EverQuest, which was about 30 I think I had in EverQuest in total. Now to actually start talking about how I play. So, spam numpad 2, target the mobs. Numpad 3 sends all of the pets in, and then I use numpad 9, which applies all of the dots. And then I usually will Shadow Bolt once or twice, which is numpad dot, or numpad delete. And typically that takes out the mob, as you just seen. Now I also have other things that I can do, such as numpad control 6, which will use Drain Soul, which I'll show you here. There we go, Drain Soul. Build up my soul shards that way. Didn't get to see it for too long since I killed the mob really fast, but... And that is the only thing I have bound to control numpad anymore. And that pretty much covers how to play a warlock as a boxer. The only other thing I have is Rain of Fire on my warlocks, which is control numpad 3. But that's and I also have that set up differently because it's also sends a key broadcast when you hit the button. It's something you can do in IS Boxer when setting up a mapped key wizard. I'll probably do tutorial videos for that sooner or later as well. Let me explain my interface a little bit too, since it might be a little confusing for people. As you can see in the middle here, these icons are a little bit bigger than the other ones on my screen. These are basically the things that are clicked because I need them a little bit bigger so they're easier to click. I'll have one of those bars on each of my characters in the future, but as of right now, interface is still being set up on everybody, and I'm still in the learning period, you could say. Once I'm level 60, I'll make my interface all nice and specific and everything like that. I'm already messing up here because my characters are on follow with me, which they shouldn't be. It's hard to do. It's hard to think about what I want to say and also play at the same time, so I'll probably be a little worse than normal throughout this video. Just bear that in mind. Also, control numpad 1 is my dispel magic, which you just see me do there. Apparently I do have more bound to control numpad, sorry, forgot about it. And also character specific keybinds. My demoralizing shout and piercing howl, they're also bound independently on my warrior, so I can hit them without doing anything else on any of the other characters. Sunder Armor 2, of course, that's probably the most important character specific keybind to have, since I need it to build threat. And as you'll notice, I don't use any of the click, the add-on, WoW add-on it's like C-L-I-Q-U-E, click is how it's pronounced, but it's not spelled click. It's the mouse over heal add-on in WoW that is very, very popular amongst healers. I don't use it because I don't like mouse over healing. Never have, probably never will. It's I would prefer to just target the person. It's something that's ingrained in my mind. I will not be able to get used to mouse over healing, and it's honestly something I would not want to get used to either, because in my opinion it makes it more tedious and more annoying. Doesn't actually make it easier, but it's personal preference type thing. I also play on the numpad, which is quite esoteric amongst gamers. I play on the numpad for almost every game I play too. Occasionally I'll use WASD, like right now I'm using it just to move around. But when I'm taking a game seriously, it's on the numpad. The reason I use the numpad is because the keys are, I feel it's much more resembling a game controller over on the right hand side of the keyboard. But like I said, personal preference. Doesn't really matter, you can still box even if you use WASD. I've known plenty of boxers that do it. In fact, it actually frees up the numpad for a bunch of character-specific keybinds or boxing keybinds. Instead of using the F key, some people may prefer to use the numpad. That's, of course, always an option. Alright, so let me, I'll do a few mock fights here and explain basically what's happening, why I'm doing what I'm doing. As you notice, I don't use any CC right now. I don't have any mages on my team, only warlocks, so it'll be a pain in the ass anyway. So basically what I do when I pull two mobs is I'll switch back and forth between them. The first one that I'm beating up will get usually 2 Sunder Armors, and then I'll switch to the other mob, and I'll whack him once or twice with Sunder Armor before I use any heals, because if I use a heal before the mobs are Sunder Armored, they'll run right over to I heal dude instead of beating them up. A Reno is fine. Usually you can toss that on your characters without, you know, drawing aggro, but it's recommended if you're going to do any bigger heals, you at least build up a few Sunder Armors first. Classic, how aggro works in Classic is a little wonky, so keep that in mind. Also, if you're playing a warrior, a macro I'd recommend is this, another cast sequence macro. You can use them for a few different things. Right now I only have Concussive Blow and Revenge mixed together in one, but I'm probably going to make a few cast sequence macros for my warrior for a DPS rotation. Well, threat rotation rather. For the most part, I pull with the warrior. Sometimes I do pull with the warlocks though, depending on the type of mob I'm fighting, like if I'm fighting a caster. Sometimes I'll pull with the warlocks. It's easier to just annihilate the caster. before it even gets to the group. And something worth noting too is you might notice I have fade bound to the same button that I use for my dots, so number 9 on the numpad. And the main reason I do this is because I occasionally, damn it, shield bash didn't go off. I occasionally like binding different skills to the same keybind like this. Like on my warrior, I actually have my revenge and concussive blow macro bound to the same button that I use dots, so numpad 9. Typically, I don't recommend doing that unless you actually know, what you're doing and you are 100% sure you want those 2 abilities to fire at one time. Sometimes it seems like a good idea and it actually ends up not being a good idea. Like I used to have flash heal bound to the same button as my dots, so whenever I dotted the target I would also flash heal. But when you pull like 4 mobs and you rotate through each of the 4 mobs, dotting them all up, and you end up spamming flash heal on yourself so much that your healer's like at half mana, really not a good idea. So I had to change that. But that's just one of the examples that little things you can experiment with, learn whether or not it's a good idea or not, and then decide for yourself. Boxing comes down to that on a lot. Boxing comes down to that with a lot of different things. It's tons of experimentation and trial and error. Kind of why I like it so much too. So everything that's going on here is really, really basic. I don't think it needs too much of an explanation. Switching targets, setting pet, hitting stuff with Shadow Bolt and dots. Pew pew. Here's a fun little thing that I do on my team / you can do too if you play a bunch of warlocks. After you blow yourself up with all of these life taps, find a corpse and cannibalize the shit out of it to restore your health. Great way to save money on some water. Although it takes a lot more time to go through life taps and stuff like that. Or rather, it takes a lot more time to not drink. I spend a lot of time life tapping and stuff like that, just to avoid drinking. The woes of not having a mage. I'll have to silence my phone. I don't know if you can even hear it in the video, but that's not your phone. I'm sure somebody out there watching the video has just repeatedly checked their phone. Sorry. I do it too. And if you'll notice too, I also don't wand on my warlocks, and that's because I'm retarded and haven't figured out a way to set it up yet or how I want to set it up, and haven't had much of a need to do it yet either, so it's not been very high on my priority list. I will eventually do it though, just because, well, it's damage without consuming mana. And as for the other abilities that I have bound to my numpad, 4 is Flash Heal, and there's nothing else bound to 4. So when the priest uses Flash Heal, nobody else does anything. 5 is Prayer of Healing, which I'm considering trying to put the Health Stone in the same macro as Prayer of Healing, but I'm not sure if I want to do that. I'm not sure if I want an independent button for the Health Stone or how I want to do that. Because if you're going to use a group heal, chances are people in your group are taking damage. So using the health stone preemptively at that time would be a good idea, but also not be a good idea because there's situations where, like, I'm spamming life tap, for example, and I'll use my group heal. So I would end up wasting the health stone, and then I would have to open trade again, give them another health stone, and it would be more tedious than I would like it to be. So I haven't decided yet if that's a route I would like to take for the group heal macro. And as you can see on my warrior, I have Blood Rage bound to just random keys. I have it duplicated quite a bit actually. These are all character-specific keybinds on my second bar that I was just mousing over. The one where you see my stances and Blood Rage, Challenging Shout, Shield Lock, all that fun stuff. But on the bar below that is Blood Rage bound to just random slots, and that's so the ability fires off whenever I'm, spamming other keys. It's kind of like a twofer. I do that so it gets used more often. I also put Revenge in some random areas too, so that gets used more often. Another alternative is abilities like Overpower, but I'm usually not in battle stance. The idea behind that is so you still have the opportunity to use the ability even though you don't want to give that ability its own specific or independent keybind. And this is going to demonstrate how I get back my mana. As you can see, I'm spam life tapping on the entire group and occasionally casting group heal on everybody. I do this quite often to restore my mana on my warlocks. Like I said, I try not to drink because it costs money. Trying to sunder armor them so they don't evade on me. I gotta move my group up after this. They're a little too far back. And for those of you out there who are probably going to comment why I picked 3 warlocks, because I've actually not seen anybody with 3 warlocks yet. A bunch of 3 mage teams, no 3 warlocks. The reason I decided that is because I wanted characters that had a lot of abilities to cast while mobile. Because I know that there's, at least from my experience boxing in EverQuest, one of the hardest things as a boxer are encounters that require you to constantly be mobile. And mages, for example, they have like Fire Blast and Arcane Explosion. I don't think you get Ice Lance in Classic. My friend said no, but for some reason I remember it in Classic. But I'm probably wrong. And no Ice Lance means you only get Fire Blast and Arcane Explosion for instant cast damage abilities. Arcane Explosion obviously sucks single target damage. Fire Blast has a significant cooldown. I think it's like 7 seconds. Not significant, but enough so that you can't spam it. Whereas Warlocks, on the other hand, they have tons of damage that they can do while moving. So any boss that requires movement, such as I'm pretty sure Dire Maul West has one. That was the one that at least I thought of when creating my team. And yeah, it makes those encounters a lot easier. Also encounters like Strath or Skolomance where the enemy's silence. If I can, I'll be able to, still do damage through silence because I can load up the enemy with a bunch of dots. I mean, I can literally Curse of Agony ×3, Corruption ×3. At that point, I'll be able to Siphon Life ×3 as well as Immolate ×3. Basically use up all the debuff slots right there. So long as the enemy isn't immune to magic, I should do quite a bit of damage to it. And that was my logic for picking the Warlocks. Soulstone and Healthstone honestly didn't even come into my mind that much. I mean, of course, they're useful, but more so I wanted damage, castable damage while moving. Not my computer, but another computer on my left just made that annoying Windows sound. Not your computer. Not your computer. Warlocks are... Oh wow, I'm getting really low on soul shards. Didn't even notice that. So yeah, that's something I have to keep better track of on my Warlocks is soul shards. Mages don't have to worry about that. Lucky mages. As you can see, basically everything is extremely straightforward. Pull a mob, spam 2 to target the mob with all of my Warlocks. Use 9 to cast 2 sets of dots on it. Maybe hit 9 a third time to shadow burn the enemy if I really want to. Completely optional though. I usually do it if I pull a lot of enemies. I'll shadow burn them to get them to pick one off a little bit faster. Otherwise, I'll just load up Curse of Agony and Corruption on them. And also, numpad 6 on my priest is one of my heals. It targets the tank though before it actually casts the heal. And I have that for just in case my priest is targeting anybody else, or I don't realize he's targeting somebody else, or something like that goes wrong. I know that when I press numpad 6, my tank is getting a big heal. Since I do heals differently than most people. I'm sure most people won't have to do that since they use click with the little repeater regions. I should give that a whirl, but as of right now, the method I got going for me works quite well, and I'm used to it from boxing and EverQuest, so it would be a really difficult habit for me to break since I'm used to boxing in other games the way I'm boxing right now. None of that mouse over heal weirdness. Now, as you can see, what actually, let me explain what I did there. When I pull 2 mobs, usually what I do is I'll load the first one up with dots, a round of Curse of Agony and a round of Corruption, and then I'll Shadow Bolt him once. And then I'll switch targets and load the other enemy up with dots. This is because I don't use CC. I'll demonstrate here. Spam numpad 2, spam numpad 3 that targets the mob, sends pets. Numpad 9, which throws all the dots on them. Numpad 6, priest is going to heal my tank. Numpad 2 on the monk to target him. Numpad 9 to throw all the dots on him. Also spamming Sunder Armor while all of this is going on. Numpad 6 to heal myself. Cast a Renew. Cast a Bubble. Warlocks are getting low on mana. So this, during this fight, I'm going to use my Warlocks in a different way. Basically the mana restorative way. So I'm spamming Life Tap on them right now while also building aggro on my Warrior. I'm hitting Group Heal on my Priest since they're all taking damage from Life Tap. Priest pulled aggro because that's what priests do. Gonna hit Life Tap a few more times. Stop Life Tapping and load this enemy up with dots. Throw a Group Heal since everybody's low, and I'm gonna Drain Soul this enemy. My mana is about half with the Warlocks, so I'll Life Tap a little bit more. Throw a Group Heal, and then I'll cast a Renew on them. This mob I'm going to basically let the other guys pull aggro if they do before he dies, and then just leave him, which they didn't. Hit life tap since they're full health. Oopsies, didn't mean to shadow burn him, but... Actually, I didn't heal myself. Now we got 3 of them. In this case, I threw all 3 of the pets and a set of dots on one of the enemies, and I also hit him with a Sunder Armor, just a single Sunder Armor. I'll eventually lose aggro on him. Most of the time I'll lose aggro on him, and he'll start attacking somebody else. There you go. He started running right at the last minute anyway. When I have 3 mobs, it's easier to just, you only Sunder Armor the one that you're killing first. You Sunder Armor him once, with the intention of him losing aggro when he's about to die, and then you focus on building up Sunder Armor on the other 2 mobs since they'll be alive while your priest is healing the most. At least that's generally what I do. Seems to work out quite well for me. Something's got me in combat. Dun dun dun. Wonder if it's my blood rage. Probably. Yeah, it is. So as you can see here, I dotted up the first enemy, which is the Centurion right here, and then I switched to the Chaplain, dotted her up, and then I started spamming Shadow Bolt on her. Left the pets on the Centurion, so my first set of dots and the pets will eventually kill the first mob that I had. And then I switched to the second mob, switched the Warlocks to the second mob, dot him up, and then spam Shadow Bolt on him. This usually leads the first and second mobs to die at relatively the same time. And that's typically how I handle pulls of 3 or more. If it gets up to 5, it starts getting a little hectic trying to keep aggro on all of them at once. What I like to do then is dot up as many mobs as I possibly can, and then AoE fear them all, and hope dots kill a few of them before they all get back to me. I haven't had any scenarios where I had to use seduction yet on the succubuses, but I know there's going to be instances later on where I have to use CC, so I'm not really looking forward to that because Warlock CC is just not nearly as good as Mage CC, but I make do with what I got. I'll end up using Fear or something like that. Howl of Terror isn't too bad, or rather Psychic Scream. I don't even know if Howl of Terror is instant cast. If it is, then I probably won't use it. Won't even make it onto my bars. Death Coil is also another ability that my Warlocks are going to get that I have yet to figure out a way to use yet. I don't want to just bind Death Coil all on the to the same button on all of the same characters, because then it'll pretty much just like instantly do away with the fear element of it because of the diminishing returns. And for what it's worth, if people still have questions after watching this video, which I'm sure you will, not only would I be more than happy to answer them in YouTube whenever in the comment section or whatever, but I'm also going to make a video guide as well as an actual written guide for my boxing setup and how to box in Classic WoW once I'm level 60. For those of you unfamiliar with me, my website, and all of that fun stuff, I actually have boxing guides for EverQuest already. I boxed 30-some characters, well, I have boxed 30-some characters in EverQuest before. I've downed raids just by myself. So I'm very familiar with boxing, been doing it for years, and my guides in EverQuest get quite a few views, support, hits, people like them, all that fun stuff. So I decided to pretty much replicate the boxing guides just in World of Warcraft this time. In other words, the video quality is going to get a lot better from here on out. This is just a beginner video of me trying to not only learn my boxing team, but learn how to make videos and the software you've required and all that stuff. I'm using Bandicam to record right now, still getting used to Bandicam. This is my first time ever using the make the webcam appear on the screen thingamajigger. Oopsies, missed the Dream Soul. Somebody's probably out of mana. Here's a good example of my buff macro too. Control F1, see Demon Armor first, Enduring Breath second. Does that for all of my locks. I'll probably add something else in there sooner or later. Depends if they get another buff. Could have sworn they got like their own little Shadow Ward as well. That wasn't just 10 seconds. I know they get one that only lasts like 10 seconds, which I may bind that to the group heal button in case they're taking shadow damage. That's undecided yet, though. I don't know if I want to waste the mana to do that because it costs like 200 mana to cast the thing. And it only lasts 10 seconds. And in order for it to be useful, they'd have to be taking shadow damage, which would be relatively rare. Back up to 10 soul shards on everybody. As you can see, I'm slacking off here quite a bit because of I'm trying to build up my soul shards again. So therefore, I'm not dotting all of the mobs appropriately, or whatever you call it. Being good at the game. There you go. That's what you call it. I am not being good at the game. Using a group heal to hit the warlock pets, because these guys are not very cool. Also using life tap so I can benefit more from group heal and get some mana back, of course. Group healing again, spamming life tap a little bit more. And it seems like my mana is full on the warlock, so don't have to spam life tap anymore. Do need to refort myself though. Dangnabbit. Another thing that I've considered doing is putting a /stand in my target macros. So that way, whenever I spam target, everybody stands up. I have that for EverQuest because you have a similar problem in EverQuest where if you're not standing, it won't cast it won't use or cast any of your spells. Like, it won't even stand you up when you press an ability, which is kind of annoying. I've almost wiped a few times with that. Like, I'll be spamming my heal button after I'll tell my priest to drink, and then I'll pull, and then I'll start spamming the heal button, and I won't be getting any heals, and I'll start wondering what the frig's going on. Realize that my priest is just sitting there chilling, not healing me. The only reason I haven't put /stand in the whatever target macro is because it'll definitely interrupt my drinking if I do that, and I'm not sure if that's what I want or not yet. It probably will be, since I'm used to how I have it set up in EverQuest. I'm probably just going to adapt and get used to the similar boxing setup, but we'll see. We shall see what happens. See, there you go. There's a good example of I was spamming heal, wondering why I wasn't getting a heal. Just as I was talking about it. Alright, time to pull the side runes, and then we're on the boss. Doing a group heal, and just in case I take damage or get hit or whatever. And see the Scarlet Wizards here, I decided to shadow burn instead of just loading them up with dots because they're really annoying. They have Arcane Explosion, they have their little AoE dot ticky thingy-majigger, which it hurts the succubuses quite a bit. And screw single target healing the succubuses, so It just costs more mana to group heal him. As you can see, I'm playing, draining soul almost every single mob, trying to rebuild up my soul shard count. I try to keep above 10 soul shards at all times, but sometimes I don't pay attention, drop below it. Wasn't quick enough to interrupt it. Nothing good, as usual. Free vision does, though. So at least there's that. Check my mana, definitely need some mana. So, spam life tap, cannibalize the corpse, and then we get to fight the boss. And for anybody watching this, if you let me know in the comments any videos you would like to see for this channel. Specifically, if you would like certain things explained with boxing that you didn't see me explain here, or basically anything, you know, along that, whatever you want to call it, avenue, road, line of thinking. Now, as you can see, for this boss, I'm taking a little slow at first. Building up Sunder Armors. Well, I threw dots on before I got a lot of Sunder Armors built up, which is fine. But once I get 3 Sunder Armors, then it's okay to start Shadow Bolting a few times, but doesn't have much health. This chick, my strategy, of course, is pretty much the same as almost everybody else's, except since I have a ton of dots, I like doing this. Now watch, the dots will most likely kill her. He got to heal off before they did. Me unlucky. Sometimes they kill her. Come on, priest. Give me some love. Shadow Burner. Now she's gonna die. Switch to Mograine. Spam Sunder on him. Even throw the pets on Mograine. Wasn't paying attention to my tank's health enough. Throw dots on Mograine, and this fight is bit. Well, he's gonna actually bubble. Yeah. Who saw that coming? He should do himself a favor and hearth. Bye, Mograine. Scarlet leggings, so not very good. Triune amulet. Well, there you go. There's another upgrade. And this character needs it. So that's basically all. I'll do more videos in the future. More videos explaining boxing and all that fun stuff. So yeah, questions, comments, leave them in the YouTube comment section. I'll answer them whenever I get a moment, and make more videos in the future as well. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully you learned something.